Tottenham getting relegated still sounds like a joke. Now, yes, they might not be the biggest in the country. They're not the biggest in London, and they're definitely not the biggest team in North London. But the notion of them being relegated sounds like what people should be tweeting when Tottenham go through a bad spell of form. The only problem is, the bad spell of form has been the entire season so far. Not to mention, Tottenham are down at 16th in the Premier League table right now. Now, people might say this is the same as last season when they finished 17th, but the only difference is last season, the three teams below them were absolutely terrible. But most notably about last season, they were 13 points ahead of the last relegated team. Whereas right now, only 1 point separates them and West Ham, who are in 18th position. Which means this is looking more and more like a reality that Tottenham could get relegated. So the question is no longer, yes, wouldn't it be funny if Tottenham got relegated? But now in this video, we're going to look at what would actually happen if Tottenham got relegated into the Championship. Because it wouldn't just be embarrassing. It wouldn't just be about the memes. I'm sorry, I'm trying my hardest to wipe this smile off my face. And it wouldn't just be Arsenal fans laughing for the rest of time. Because Tottenham being relegated could have serious financial, reputational, and football consequences for the North London Lily Whites. So in this video, we're going to break down those 3 very real consequences for Tottenham. And then right at the end of the video, I'm going to give an Arsenal fan's perspective on the entire situation because, let's face it, Arsenal's fiercest rivals, local rivals being relegated, that's something. So our first consequence is the financial shock for the club. Now, according to Tottenham's latest financials for the year 2024-25, they showed 528 million in total revenue. Now, this included around 166 million for TV and media, 105 million for match receipts, and 255 from commercial and other income. That model already screams Premier League super club. That is not a Championship club model by any stretch of the imagination. Now, it's not that Tottenham will become broke overnight because of all the loss in revenue. There are still parachute payments that get paid to clubs when they're relegated. But those parachute payments are exactly that. They're parachutes. They're built to soften the blow of when you eventually land in having revenue loss. They are not going to erase any sort of damage. You're still going to feel it. And if you want to look further at the difference between money in the Premier League and in the Championship, Deloitte's latest review shows exactly that. Premier League clubs generated 6.3 billion aggregate revenue in 23-24, whereas Championship clubs only managed to get just below 1 billion. So the point is simple. Tottenham's costs, their expectations, their infrastructure is all built to be a top Premier League club. They are not built in the same way that a Norwich City is built, a Leicester City, maybe even a Burnley or a Wolves, where there is potential that they could get relegated and potential they could stay in the Premier League. Mind you, it's been almost 50 years since Tottenham experienced any form of relegation. And that's going all the way back down to 1977. Their stadium business, their sponsorship position, their wage commitments, their entire image of being Tottenham Hotspur, having that massive modern stadium is all part of the image of being a big Premier League player. And if they get relegated to the Championship, the entire image crumbles. And that matters because the bigger the size of your operation, the bigger the size of your model as a club, the harder it gets to shrink that down when unforeseen circumstances happen. So even though Spurs have a lot more financial protection, relegation would still be a massive, massive financial hit for them, regardless of their sponsorship. Consequence number 2, and this is where it gets really, really dark for Tottenham. Because once that revenue drops, the entire squad becomes a liability. And yes, a lot of fans, Sky Sports are saying that yes, Tottenham will lose a lot of players. But I think it's even deeper than that. And the reason why it's deeper is because they could be forced into a domino effect of sales. Now, I did some research and some digging online, and there aren't as many public online databases for contracts and, every single clause in contracts. They just simply don't exist. However, one tool that is great for monitoring this is Transfermarkt. And according to Transfermarkt, there are a lot of big names at Tottenham who are coming into their last 2 years of their contracts. We're talking the likes of James Maddison, Dejan Kulusevski, Richarlison, Bissouma, Bentancur, Pedro Porro. These are very, very key players. Players that might not want to gamble their future in the second tier of English football. And more than ever in football now, we're seeing players take power into their own hands when it comes to the last year of their contract. They would rather wait out and not sign so they can get a nice, good bonus at the end of it for their new club. And this is very attractive to the likes of Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, teams that really like to take the advantage of free transfers. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of players that have more than 2 years on their contract. But according to David Ornstein, a vast majority of the team have relegation reduction clauses, which sees them cut their wages for around 50% if the team get relegated. And David Ornstein is a very, very reliable source when it comes to football news. And he's also a pretty cool guy, so there's that. But this changes the conversation completely. Because it's not just about, players might fancy leaving, they might not invest in the team's dream to get back into the Premier League and ascend back to the heights that they Heights. I don't even know what heights they're talking about. But I guess, yeah, heights of winning the Europa League and being a very big Premier League team. But if players are facing a massive wage reduction and then the club are facing a massive drop in revenue and they need to recoup those losses very, very quickly so they don't get points deductions and fines, this actually paints a picture for both parties to break away. The players will want to protect their level and their earnings. The club will need to sell and balance the books. And this is how being relegated can turn the club into a fire sale. And when you look at the names of the Tottenham squad and their transfer values, this is when the conversation gets really, really scary. Transfermarkt currently values Mickey van der Ven at 65 million euros, Christian Romero at 60, and Vicario at 30. Not to mention other players like Kudus, Kulusevski, Porro, Udogi, who are all valued at over 40 million euros. So imagine this scenario. You've been relegated, your revenues are falling, and most of the squad faces wage cuts. And now some of your most valuable players are your most obvious sellable assets. That's not bad for just one season. That is how the spine of a team can get absolutely ripped out, and a team could potentially languish in the championship, or even scarier, face consecutive relegation. I'm not hyperbolizing, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not saying this because I'm an Arsenal fan. This is the dark reality of a giant being relegated into the championship. And it's not even a matter of, okay, yes, we'll just replace the quality we're losing. It's about replacing that quality whilst your team is being weakened. And whilst you're not able to attract the biggest names in football, you're no longer in the Champions League. You're no longer in the best league in the world. If you thought Tottenham had a bad time getting their main targets whilst they were in the Premier League, now they could be in the Championship, it will be a completely different question. I think the only thing they'll have to offer is a great stadium and the fact they're in London. So in short, relegation could trigger an accelerated squad breakup. Just quickly, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to smash a massive like on this video and share it around with your friends. Especially if your friends are Tottenham fans, be sure to send it to them and let them comment their takes on the situation going on at Tottenham right now. Let's get back into the video. And lastly, PSR. Now for me, this is the most important part and the most interesting part of the entire discussion. Because relegation doesn't automatically mean a points reduction, but it can create conditions for one later. I mean, just ask Leicester City. Now, before we get into it, admittedly, PSR, SCR, SSR, all of these three-letter abbreviations are very, very complex. And sometimes they're kind of confusing. But right now, I'm going to break down both PSR and SCR in a very short, hopefully understandable manner. Firstly, PSR, which stands for Profit and Sustainability Rules, is the Premier League's rule that limits how much loss a club can make over a 3-year rolling period. And this is designed to stop clubs from overspending beyond their means. Whereas SCR, which stands for Squad Cost Ratio, is the newer squad cost rule that limits how much of a club's revenue can be spent on things like wages, transfers, and agent fees. So in short, PSR limits a club's losses and SCR limits a club's spending. Now let's take a quick look into what happened to Leicester City. The Premier League confirmed on the 19th of Feb this year that Leicester appealed a decision by the Independent Commission to impose a 6-point deduction after finding the club in breach of the EFL's profit and sustainability rules. And that small difference between the EFL's set of rules and the Premier League set of rules is what's very, very key here. And this is because under the EFL rules, a club breaches the system if its loss over the relevant period, so 3 years, exceeds £39 million, with that threshold increased by 22 million for every single season they've spent in the Premier League during that same 3-year period. Now, during that period, Leicester City lost £83 million in the space of 3 years. If you compare the club size of Leicester City and Spurs, you can see why this might just trip up Spurs and they could see more than just a 6-point deduction that Leicester City got. Mainly because they are a much larger size of club. They have a lot more revenue in terms of TV and their sponsorships, but then everything around their stadium is built for a top-level Premier League club. But I know the rules and regulations and the finances can get very complicated, so let's make this simple. If Tottenham were relegated, they wouldn't just be dealing with less money coming in and losing revenue, they would also be moving into a much stricter financial environment at the worst possible time for the club. And that is the trap. And that's why the Leicester City case study is extremely important in this case. And there is another layer that sits underneath every single point that I've made today: status. Because if Tottenham go down, yes, it will damage their finances. Yes, it will restructure their squad. Yes, they'll be hit with massive points deductions potentially and all of these fines. But most importantly, and some would say most critically, it would damage their identity completely. A club that sees itself as part of the elite, a club that wants Champions League football every single season, a club that wants to attract top players and top managers. That image takes a massive hit to the chest when you get relegated. And that's what matters in football. The mindset of players begins to change. The mindset of coaches changes. You no longer have the same leverage that you had when you're in the Premier League. As some would put it, your aura disappears. And even in the aspect where fans like yourself and I will never truly understand, I think this will even change the way that clubs will deal with Tottenham in the back room when it comes to player negotiations, when it comes to sales, or even buying from Tottenham. Relegation doesn't just mean that Tottenham are in the Championship for at least a season. It means that Tottenham are no longer treated with the same respect as the rest of the Premier League steady eddies, talk less of the rest of the elite Premier League teams. And something as big as reputational damage in football can last much, much longer than the relegation itself. But now, just before I finish, I need to be very, very honest here. I'm an Arsenal fan. And there is another side to this conversation. Because if Tottenham actually managed to get relegated, all of the context aside, all of the research that I've done aside, this will be the funniest season in Arsenal's history. Because imagine this scenario. Arsenal right now are 7 points clear at the top of the table. They're into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, final of the Carabao Cup, and are heading strong into the Champions League final 16. Imagine this, your local and fiercest rivals in the league get relegated. In the same season, you win the league. You potentially win the Carabao Cup. You could even win the Champions League. Arsenal are chasing 4 different trophies. In the same season, their North London rivals are chasing freedom, survival, to stay with the big dogs. From an Arsenal fan's perspective, this is football comedy of the highest tier. Because this is history. This is legacy. This is generational slander. Do you think Tottenham could ever, with pride, talk about winning the Europa League? Do you think even if Tottenham get 115 points in the Championship and get promoted immediately, do you think the North London derby will ever be the same? All jokes aside, that is what makes the possibility of Tottenham being relegated even more massive. Because we've dealt with the facts, we've dealt with the context and the research and the financials and everything like that. Now we're just talking about the culture of football and where it is right now. Because Tottenham always see themselves as part of the Big Six. They see themselves as one of the biggest teams in London. One of the biggest teams in London, one of the Big Six, do not get relegated. That is not even part of the vocabulary when discussing the rest of the Big Six. But you've heard enough from me. I want to know your opinions. Whether you're a Tottenham fan, whether you're an Arsenal fan like me, or just a fan of football in general, put your comments down below. Do you think that Tottenham will get relegated? Do you think they won't? I want to hear from all of you guys. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to smash a massive like on this video. We're going for around 150 likes. If you can get that, that'll be absolutely amazing. And guys, make sure if you enjoyed this video, share it around with your friends, especially those who support Tottenham, because I really want to hear from them. And if you like more videos like this, I want to see more, hit that subscribe button to join MB United, a massive group of not only Arsenal, but football lovers in general. Now, just before we go, there's going to be a video popping up right here on screen that I think you're going to enjoy just as much as this video right here. So until next time, keep it real, and I'll see you when I see you in a bit.